Welcome to Cheddar Big News. Today is Thursday, November 29th, 2018. This is your source for right now. I'm Hannah Doba. And now the big stories. The families of 6 of the victims of a school shooting in Texas are suing the parent of the admitted gunman. This happened towards the end of the school year in Santa Fe, Texas last May. Demetrios Pagordas allegedly killed 10 people when he opened fire at the school. He's charged with capital murder. The families of the victims are now suing the parents of the shooter. They say the parents were negligent for allowing the shooter access to the guns he used in the killing. The lawsuit says there were enough signs that the teen suspect was a threat and the weapons should have been more secure. A lawyer for the parents says the shotgun and handgun were locked up. The parents were never charged with a crime. One of the families suing is from Pakistan. Their daughter, who was an exchange student, was killed. They say they hope the lawsuit will put the gun problem in the United States front and center. President Trump heads to Argentina today for the G20 summit, and while foreign policy will be the main topic, domestic issues are front and center today. We're getting a better idea of the scope of the questions Robert Mueller asked President Trump as part of his investigation into Russian collusion. It appears to focus on several main points. The first is the platform from the Republican National Convention when it comes to Ukraine. The platform was softened, and the Mueller team wants to know why. They're also looking into the meeting at Trump Tower between Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, and others with a Russian lawyer who reportedly said she had dirt on the Clintons. The special counsel is also looking into any connection between the Trump campaign team and WikiLeaks. This all comes to light on the same day the Senate failed to pass a motion to protect the Mueller probe. It also comes after the president said that a pardon for his former campaign manager is not off the table. We'll have much more on all of these moving parts coming up in a report from Washington in just a few minutes. Although the Senate did not vote on Mueller, they had plenty to say after a briefing about the murder of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The briefing was conducted by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Secretary of Defense James Mattis. It's been nearly 2 months since Khashoggi was killed in the Saudi consulate in Turkey. After the meeting, Mattis told reporters there was no smoking gun linking the murder to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. The one person not in the meeting was the CIA director, and that did not sit well with senators on the Intelligence Committee.
The most persuasive presence in this briefing was the empty chair, a chair that should have been occupied by Gina Haspel, the head of the Central Intelligence Agency.
It's outrageous that the Senate can be stonewalled from hearing from the CIA director.
Quite frankly, I am not going to be denied the ability to be briefed by the CIA that we have oversight of about whether or not their assessment supports my belief that this could not have happened without MBS knowing.
Just last week, President Trump released a statement saying maybe the Crown Prince had something to do with the killing, but maybe he didn't. The president said the U.S. relationship with Saudi Arabia will remain unchanged. The Crown Prince is also attending the G20 summit, but it is unclear if he and President Trump will meet. Mexico is opening up a second shelter to house the thousands of migrants who are trying to claim asylum in the U.S. This comes just days after a group of several hundred people were tear-gassed at the border trying to scale a fence. The current shelter is in an open-air stadium, leaving people exposed to the elements. There are anywhere between 5,000 and 8,000 people in Tijuana trying to get into the U.S. President Trump has vowed to prevent anyone from entering the country illegally. Right now, only about 40 asylum requests can be processed in a single day. The foreign minister says they need more funding from the U.S. to house the migrants and keep them from the border. A tradition 88 years in the making continued last night. It was the lighting of the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree here in New York. Rockefeller Center has hosted the event since 1931. Mayor Bill de Blasio flipped the switch after performances by Tony Bennett and Diana Ross. The 72-foot tall tree is decorated with 5 miles of LED lights and a 900-pound Swarovski crystal star on top. The 75-year-old Norway spruce was donated by a couple in upstate New York and will be on display until January 7th, after which it will be given to Habitat for Humanity to help build homes. And down in Washington, President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump lit the national Christmas tree in President's Park, just south of the White House. It was the 96th tradition for that. Special counsel Robert Mueller's probe into President Trump is heating up. President Trump is matching the investigation and tweets and aggression. J.D. Durkin is live on Capitol Hill with the very latest. Good morning, J.D. I'm curious to know about these angry tweets this morning.
Hannah, my full-time job is to keep up with angry tweets from the president. That is, in fact, in my job description, of course. So, look, there is a lingering question a lot of people here, I think, in D.C. are asking this morning, Hannah, and it largely is this. Will the president reward Paul Manafort, his former campaign chairman, for the seeming open defiance to special counsel Robert Mueller, especially given the fact that in the last few days, we certainly know it's now the special counsel's office that is charging that despite the fact that Paul Manafort scored for himself a plea deal 2 months ago, he continued to mislead investigators. What is now being called into sharp focus is the relationship between the Trump attorneys at the White House and Paul Manafort's own attorneys. Now, Hannah, you know me here, my friend. I love my beauty sleep, which means by 11:39 p.m. at night on a weeknight, I am already several REM cycles into my deep night sleep. The same apparently cannot be said for the president because he tweeted very late last night at 11:39 this. Take a look. Quote, "So much happening with the now discredited witch hunt. This total hoax will be studied for years." Now, there's a lot of speculation out there about what exactly the president's end game is in all this, but there is one important perspective. Jerry Nadler, current ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee here on Capitol Hill, soon to be chairman of that very important committee. He sat down with CNN. Here's what Jerry Nadler had to say. Take a look.
I suspect they're dangling a pardon in front of Manafort, but the president should understand that even dangling a pardon in front of a witness like Manafort is dangerously close to obstruction of justice, and we just fortify a claim or a charge of obstruction of justice against the president.
Now here, Hannah, one of the biggest challenges for prosecutors as they continue to piece together this particular incident of Paul Manafort is the determination of intent or motivation of any particular witness. For instance, can they exactly say beyond a reasonable doubt what Paul Manafort's motivation has been throughout this process to take some information that he's hearing from the special counsel's office through their robust questioning and take that back to President Trump's attorneys at the White House? Both Paul Manafort and his own attorneys have this somewhat unusual arrangement. Prosecutors will continue to try and drill down and figure out exactly what that motivation is for Mr. Manafort. As for the president's retweeting spree yesterday, this is important, strangely. This is now the infamous meme retweeted by the president on a fan account. It included this image. Take a look that says, "When do the trials for treason begin?" You'll see a lot of Democratic faces in there, or at least critics of the president. Buried there in the back left, somewhere between Robert Mueller and Hillary Clinton, is a familiar face. That is Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. He was appointed by none other than President Trump. He also, just so happens to be the guy who basically hired Robert Mueller. Why would the president retweet this fan account meme that features his own Deputy Attorney General behind bars? The president was asked that very question by the New York Post yesterday, to which President Trump simply responded, quote, "He should have never picked a special counsel." Hannah, back to you.
Wow, never a dull moment there, JD. And a bipartisan effort hoping to save Bob Mueller. What's the latest there?
Yeah, well, they certainly try. I mean, look, we're talking about this handful of this trio of senators here on Capitol Hill yesterday. Let's first look at the president's tweet from this morning, if we had that. Here's what the president has to ask about the furtherance of this investigation. He says, "Did you ever see an investigation more in search of a crime?" asks the president. At the same time, Mueller and the angry Democrats are not even looking at the atrocious and perhaps subversive crimes that were committed by crooked Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. A total disgrace. Of course, critics here would be inclined to say, Is it really a witch hunt, though? Are they really in search of a crime? They've had, dozens of indictments, at least 6 plea deals that we know. We got a handful of additional sealed indictments we have yet to officially see. But as for those trio of senators, one Republican, Jeff Flake, 2 Democrats, Chris Coons and Cory Booker, over in the Senate, once again trying to force this issue of saying, we need to protect Robert Mueller's work, right? The president continues to threaten Bob Mueller. Here's what the outgoing Republican Jeff Flake had to say to try and plead his case to his colleagues Wednesday. Take a look.
My colleagues have said that this legislation is not necessary. Some of my colleagues, as there hasn't been any indication that Mr. Mueller will be removed from office. But with the president tweeting on a regular basis, a daily basis, that the special counsel is conflicted, that he is leading so-called 12 angry Democrats and demeaning and ridiculing him in every way, to be so sanguine about the chances of him being fired is folly for us, I believe.
All right, so despite Jeff Flake's best pleas there yesterday, we certainly know at the end of the day here, and it all comes down to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. He remains defiant, saying there is no need to bake into already existing legislation the need to protect Robert Mueller. The president is not going to fire Robert Mueller. Mitch McConnell further telling reporters here in Washington yesterday, we have a lot of things to do to try and finish up this year without taking votes on things that are completely irrelevant to outcomes. Clearly here, Hannah, a handful of sitting U.S. senators really disagree with Mitch McConnell. We'll see where that particular storyline goes from here. Hannah.
Very interesting, JD. Thank you so much. We'll have much more from JD Durkin on Capitol Hill in the next half hour. And next on Cheddar Big News.